Welcome to the 70s versus the 80s, all my fellow retro pop culture loving babies. And if you ever felt like you climbed Mount Everest just because you wore a pair of moon boots up the broken escalator at JCPenney just because you wanted to get up to get the free samples of Drakkar and Brut by Fabergé, then this is the podcast for you. This is Wolfman Mike on the mic, and I can talk 70s and 80s all night, and I can talk the chicks of Baywatch all night, and I can talk the chicks of Miami Vice all night, but the chicks of Golden Girls, yeah, I got a very controversial statement that I'm going to talk about later. And as always, I am joined by Spunky Comstock himself. He's the co-host with the most. He's pretty fly for a bride guy. It's Brian. And in case you can't remember what Brian sounds like, Brian sounds a little something like this.
Our choir got better when I was singing in it when they unplugged my microphone, so I understand.
And check this out. On today's show, we're going to talk the brand new television shows of 1975 and the brand new television shows of 1985. We're going to talk about which shows we would watch versus which shows we would just tape versus which shows we would skip altogether.
Up your nose with a rubber hose.
Then, after Brian gives us a compelling story about how he used to run the single T formation with his stuffies, Mike's going to talk about Mike's Moon Boot Memory Minute, where I have to say everything I know about the history of moon boots before Ace Frehley is done singing. It'll make sense when we get there, don't worry. Then, in another episode of People Who Died, we have another iconic 1970s female singer that died, so we're going to talk about her. Then, unfortunately, Gene Hackman also passed away, but we have an exciting new feature called Was It Gene Hackman or Is It Michael Caine Game? We just got too much show, so let's get to it.
Wolfman Mike on the mic. You know, we've kind of made it a tradition here at the 70s versus the 80s podcast to kind of do the years in review of things from 40 and 50 years ago right around New Year's and the first couple months of the year. So for 75 and 85, we kind of looked at movies, but we should take a look at TV shows. And since really the top TV shows in those time frames were kind of static from year to year, let's just look at new TV shows that debuted in 1975 or in 1985. And I think you had a unique way that we're just kind of look at a snapshot of them. We're not going to go through and review every single new TV show. There are a lot more of them than I thought there would be when I was researching this.
Yeah, I was thinking we could break it down into categories. You know, back then you'd read the TV guide to see what you're going to watch, and then you'd have to decide what you're going to watch. So I thought we could break it down into what we're going to watch, what we're going to record, or I should say what we're going to tape, because I think we said tape back then, and then which one we would skip. So, yeah, and you're right. There are some big shows in 1975 especially. So let's get into it.
All right. Yeah, 75 for me. Right away, when you're looking at the watch, so these are the ones you're going to stop playing with your Fisher-Price toys. You're going to stop playing with your electronic football game, and you're going to watch this show. You're going to sit down, and you're going to have to hold it until the advertisements, and you got to race your siblings to the bathroom to be able to finish up in the bathroom and make it back in time to have them come back from the 2 minutes and 30 seconds worth of commercials. However, I'm going to already wimp out and choose two for the watch. And the funny thing is they debuted 5 days apart.
1975 TV show to never miss.
January 18th, 1975. If you were a All in the Family fan, you got The Jeffersons. Jeffersons is must-watch TV. I mean, just the George Jefferson walk and to hear him say Wheezy. You know, you had to see that you just had to, right? That's appointment television. You had to see the Jeffersons.
Moving on up. I think I even remember seeing that the theme song the first time it came on. I would have been very young, but I can remember just what a big impact that theme song was. And you're like, what's this Jeffersons show going to be like? We knew him already from All in the Family. We were so young, we're just kind of new to what spinoffs were, even though they're going to have so many spinoffs off All in the Family. But that one had a huge impact on our society. Just hearing that theme music.
Definitely. All right. Do you want to go with your watch, and then I'll go with mine that debuted 5 days later? So these would have been shows that weren't necessarily starting the season, like the TV season for 74, 75 would have started in September of 74. These would have been mid-season replacement shows, and to have them be, both of them, in my opinion, be bangers is kind of impressive. So that I also like how long they ran. So the Jeffersons ran, the last episode would have been July 2nd of 1985. So the Jeffersons got a good solid decade, 10 years worth of the Jeffersons.
All right. So, and the Jeffersons was on CBS. So I would be over, and I had a lot of ABC shows. I always thought ABC was third banana back then. There seems to be a lot of ABC shows on my list.
1975 TV show to never miss.
And I'm going to go with Welcome Back, Kotter.
Welcome back. Your dreams were your ticket out. Welcome back to that same old place that you laughed about. Well, the names have all changed since you hung around, but those dreams have remained and they've turned around.
The world getting a young, unknown John Travolta thrust upon them.
Yeah, a little Vinnie Barbarina up your nose with a rubber hose, and Gabe Kaplan, who would go on to have an epic match with Robert Blake, another guy I'm going to mention here later. Battle of the Network Stars with that epic run where Gabe Kaplan seemed to be dead to the world, and he won that race. But Welcome Back, Kotter just had that big, huge ensemble cast, all the characters, Boom Boom Washington, Epstein, who always brought a note from Epstein's mother, Horseshack, and then you'd have Gabe Kaplan's wife and the principal. Just a huge ensemble cast, and the reason I pick it is just because it was I like comedy, and I think it was the most comical of the shows that came out. Well, we're missing a big comedy show that came out in 75 we're going to talk about, but out of the sitcoms, I thought it was just the funniest of the sitcoms, and it had all those sayings.
Up your nose with a rubber hose.
Yep. In elementary school and into middle school, you'd have those sayings. You'd have the Welcome Back, Kotter. People have the Welcome Back, Kotter, metal lunch tin. You're rolling into school, getting the eyeballs on you when you're walking in with your Welcome Back, Kotter metal lunch box.
John Travolta, Vinnie Barbarino, he was dressed in the modern days 70s clothes, where Fonzie was always the 50s, kind of dressed in 50s.
Fonzie's still the James Dean.
You kind of felt like you're getting your modern day cool guy with them.
All right. So for my second one, this is kind of a sitcom too, but it's like a police-based sitcom. Had a fantastic theme song. I think when we did our theme song draft, our friend Jim Borner picked this as one of his favorite TV theme songs of all time with a fantastic bass. And it's, of course, Barney Miller, Hal Linden, and Abe Vigoda, and all those people, and kind of a little bit more sophisticated, but a funny sitcom compared to like a Welcome Back, Kotter. So that was one of my favorites. Sometimes I'll go back and watch old Barney Miller episodes just to kind of get that feel for those great shows of the 70s. So Barney Miller debuted January 23rd of 75, and it ran till May 20th, 1982. So it had a good solid run as well, not Jefferson's category. So I'm just make time to watch Barney Miller. That was a great show.
Yeah, it was. That one would have played well, I think, as a play because, like I said, 85% of it took place in that one room.
Yeah.
Again, with the ensemble cast, and a lot of it took place in that one room. So
yeah,
I'd like to see somebody kind of make it into a play. But Barney Miller was a favorite show of my dad and my parents, and so I'd be stuck watching that one quite a bit. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. That was one of my parents' favorites too. So that's kind of the nostalgia too of shows that you watch with your parents.
And you can even see a famous picture out there where they got the Welcome Back, Kotter cast, the kids inside the jail cell of Barney Miller. I don't know why they did that for a picture. It was like
cross promotion, right?
Cross promotion at the time, yeah.
All right, so no overlaps yet. What show would you say that you would record in 1975?
1975 TV show to always tape.
Ooh, I'm staying with police, but I got more of a gritty police show here. I'm going with I'm back at ABC. I'm going with a buddy cop action series featuring the street smart, stylish detectives and their iconic Ford Gran Torino. It's Starsky and Hutch.
Have to go Starsky and Hutch before got David Soul going out and doing Blue-Eyed Soul. That Ford Gran Torino, growing up in a Mopar Chrysler Dodge family. We didn't watch Starsky and Hutch because we're brand loyal. So I missed out on a lot of good police things, and obviously I should have been recording it so I could watch it later.
I love their informant, Huggy Bear. Huggy Bear was one of the most comical characters.
Hey, for $7.50 you get your complete vampire protection kit, complete with hammer and stake for finishing off the old dude. One cross, guaranteed to make any vampire of Christian persuasion cringe in terror. And one garlic wreath for all the rest of the denominations.
Huggy Bear was great. The Gran Torino with the almost like a Nike stripe down it. I don't know. It's just, they're supposed to be undercover cops, but they're driving around in this bright red and white
Flamboyant car.
And I still use the line from the show whenever one of my friends is driving crazy. I'm like, I feel like I should be leaning out the window, shooting at the car behind us like Starsky and Hutch because you're just driving so crazy. That's kind of the way you used to drive, Brian. So maybe I use that line on you.
Used to. You're insulting me by saying used to.
It's true. That's true. So the old Starsky and Hutch. All right.
1975 TV show to always tape.
So for record, I have Saturday Night Live, and for two reasons. One, when it debuted, we were elementary school, so we couldn't stay up that late, so we could have got to watch all the old stuff. And now, 50 years later, because it's still on the air 50 years later, it debuted October 11th of 1975. Recorded because we can't stay up that late. So we've gone from we can't stay up that late because we were young and had school the next, or had church and then school, and we've gone to now we're just too damn old. We talked Saturday Night Live, we had Saturday Night Live drafts, and it was around, but it would have been great to be able to watch them all from the start, watch the evolution, see why people started in the second season saying Saturday Night Live's not as funny as it used to be, and that's continued on for 49 years.
Yeah, Saturday Night Live I didn't even put it in my list because it's just its own category. It's such a It's the one show that's still going that that we're going to be talking about today. Just had its 50th year anniversary. Everybody's been talking about it. It's just an epic show that just kind of really framed a lot of our sense of humor. And that show always has a special place in my heart for that show.
Yeah, definitely. I've been a fan the entire time. It's a way to keep up with the trends in humor and not feel like you're getting old and not just say, oh, it's terrible. It's not as fun as it used to be just because you've gotten old. So it helps us stay young. I just use it as a joke to record it. You recorded it in 75 because you're too young, and now you record it in 2025 because you're too old.
That's a great way to look at it, yeah.
1975 TV show to always skip.
So there was a fantastic show, the Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour, or whatever it was called. And in 1975, because of the acrimonious split between Sonny and Cher, they both ended up getting their own shows. So there was the Cher Variety Hour, which debuted February 16th of 1975, and it ran for 26 episodes until June 4th of 1976. And CBS or ABC was going to have the Sonny Review, which was going to be Sonny having his own show that was going to go up head-to-head against Cher, and then they ended up canceling it.
Oh.
This is just Cher without Sonny. She doesn't have Greg Allman on. So just, you can skip it. You're going to get Cher a whole bunch of other places. You can skip the Cher show that debuted in February of 1975.
Or you could just watch the first 2 minutes. I think the big catch was she'd come out with, you'd have to see, oh, look at the outfit she's wearing, because she'd wear a crazy outfit. But then once you see the outfit review, you just, I didn't remember the rest of the show after that point, yeah.
Makes sense to me.
1975 TV show to always skip.
My skip is I have another ABC show. Yeah, we already talked about it, starring Robert Blake. Robert Blake was an unconventional undercover detective, famous for his pet cockatoo and catchphrase, "Don't do the crime if you can't do the time." And this would be the show Beretta. And I actually kind of liked the show, but I had to skip it because, he was so disgraceful on Battle of the Network Stars where he lost his temper, and then he lost the race to Gabe Kaplan, who was the nerdy Welcome Back Kotter guy. And then, he had his catchphrase, "Don't do the crime if you can't do the time." I guess he should have listened to that because I think he later got convicted for killing his wife. So,
yeah. I preferred Peter Falk and Columbo to Robert Blake and Beretta.
I mean, I like the idea to had a pet cockatoo that would be on his shoulder and stuff. That was kind of cool. At the time, I thought it was kind of cool, but I think it would be kind of unwatchable. But now, because of the downfall of Robert Blake, I'm going to put that as my skip show.
All right. That works for me. All right, so there's a snapshot of the 1975 new shows and some deep insight from the 70s versus 80s podcast, guys.
Someone by night
All right, so we would have been a decade older in 1985, so we might have some different memories or different shows that we actually liked in 1985. But let's do the same thing. So Wolfman Mike on the mic, why don't you start us off with your 1985 must-watch show? Now, this would be stop playing baseball with the neighbor kids or football with the neighbor kids or get home from work because it's starting to be that kind of time frame. And you're going to sit down in front of the TV, and what's your must-watch show that debuted in 1985?
1985 TV show to never miss.
All right, here I am. I used to make fun of ABC, but I guess most of my shows are ABC. Here's another ABC show. It's listed as a mix of comedy, romance, and detective drama. Detective dramas were so big back in the 70s and 80s, but this one starred Bruce Willis and Sybil Shepherd with rapid-fire dialogue and fourth-wall-breaking humor. And this would be Moonlighting.
Hello.
Hello. Wow. My goodness, Mr. Pesto, we're looking a little pale today, aren't we? And who have we here?
I don't know. Just came.
Now, no reason to be shy. Let's see a little confidence, a little charisma, a little Dale Carnegie. Remember, lesson 1. Imagine your entire audience is completely naked. Boggles the mind, doesn't it?
I just liked it because, like they said, it would always break the fourth wall. Bruce Willis would look at the camera and talk to us, the audience. And it was such a different show just because of that kind of style where it was very aware of itself. It would always make fun of itself. Bruce Willis this was his introduction. I mean, we talked about he was in that Miami Vice episode, but this was his big starring role. And he was just really a force when he came onto this show. He just kind of took over everything. And Sybil Shepherd, we kind of realized how beautiful she was. You know, we saw her in Taxi Driver and stuff, but this was her. She really got to be a comedic force and just kind of be a beautiful foil to him. And they really had a big chemistry together. So I'm going with Moonlighting. It's a show that I think a lot of our younger listeners might not have maybe even heard of before.
That very well could be. Yeah, so my pick.
1985 TV show to never miss.
So you know how we see things differently. We have different favorite bands and different stuff like that. So I picked a show debuted March 3rd of 1985 and kind of had a short run, ran through May 14th of 1989. And it was this country's, and my whole family loved it, brother and my parents. And it was this country's real strong introduction. I mean, he had a little guest role on Miami Vice, but his real strong introduction to Bruce Willis, and I picked the exact same show as you did. I picked Moonlighting as well. When I looked at the list of shows, that just jumped out at me. It's like that was our favorite, probably my favorite show in 85 when it debuted, just because of everything you said. It was the quirkiness and the offbeat sense of humor and the poke fun at itself and didn't take itself too seriously. And Bruce Willis that's probably I think maybe his most endearing role. I mean, people are going to like his role as in Die Hard and everything, but I think Bruce Willis's best work was in Moonlighting.
Yeah, I think it was it had most of his personality, and he was in Die Hard, and I loved him in Pulp Fiction. Great later career choice for him, but I always think of him as Moonlighting as being his jumping off point. So that was interesting that I think we both had that same sense of humor. That's why we both picked that. And now, for my record show,
1985 TV show to always tape.
Again, I'm going with a comedy, a sitcom finally, and this one stars Alan Thicke as a psychiatrist and father, Jason Seaver, with a young Kirk Cameron as his rebellion son, and this is Growing Pains. Had that great theme. I don't think we mentioned the theme song yet, even though we had that theme song show. Had a great theme song. This is kind of a classic sitcom. It just kind of, again, it had that sense of humor that was kind of a little bit different, kind of being a little more edgy from 1985, and Growing Pains. And Kirk Cameron was cool then. He's kind of a square now, I think, but he was cool back then.
Yeah, it was a good comedy. We watched it as well. Wasn't as, maybe as much of fans as you were. But definitely when you talk about TV theme songs, I don't know if it's just an age thing. The ones that always jump out to me are the ones from the 70s. I think when we went through and picked them, most of mine were from the 70s, the Sanford and Son, the Barney Miller.
Yeah.
But there were some great theme songs in these 80s shows as well.
The 80s usually had a little more synthesizer to them, a little more produced.
Yeah.
Or the 70s ones were kind of like, they sounded like 70s movies. They were just kind of classic and raunchy.
Would you say they were entering into yacht rock territory, the 80s theme songs?
This Growing Pain song, yeah, this might be entering yacht rock territory. That's a good observation.
If you're a new listener and you don't know what yacht rock is, we did an episode maybe 3, 4, 5 episodes ago about yacht rock. You can go check that out.
1985 TV show to always tape.
Well, I had, and this was basically spurred by the recent passing of terrible baseball player and fantastic announcer and maybe even funnier person of Bob Uecker. So as Mr. Belvedere debuted March 15th of 1985, ran until July 8th of 1990. Bob Uecker being first I think he was a construction worker, then they turned him into like a sports writer to kind of fit with his whole vibe, and had a butler, and the two of them were always at odds, and it was just kind of that kind of fun humor. Mainly just picked because with us having lost Bob Uecker, to kind of go back and be nostalgic about him in his, his funny non-baseball days. But I'm going with Mr. Belvedere for the record show.
All right, Mr. Belvedere. That's one. I admit I kind of skipped that one. I love Bob Uecker, but just the title alone kind of made me always run away from that. So, but all right, that was a good one.
Yeah. And it might be outside of the Uecker parts. It might not be any good. I don't know. I'm picking it just because of his recent passing and the kind of the flood of memories of that brought up.
All right.
1985 TV show to always skip.
Back in the day, we got a publication called The Sporting News. So before ESPN, before cable TV, we didn't have cable TV until I think into the late 80s or maybe even early 90s. How'd you get your sports information? Well, you could get a weekly publication called The Sporting News brought to your house. And so I'd subscribe to it, and there would be a column in there, usually a decent column, but mainly about baseball, by Larry King. Well, Larry King would go on to host a show called Larry King Live from June 3rd, 1985 till December 16th of 2010. And I'm saying it's an old guy with suspenders, with crackpots calling in. You can skip it.
Is this still CNN? Don't most shows go down a little?
Most people do also. But, yeah, no, I went off the air. I was the #1 show on television, Larry. Do you know who I am?
Jewish guy, Brooklyn.
Yes.
Okay.
75 million viewers last episode.
Boy, you don't take it so bad.
Wow. We had to be tortured with that show for that many years. I did not realize that was
25 years and 6 months and 13 days. Caller, you're on the air. And I'm not wearing suspenders.
He's kind of like us, so Brian. He was famous for not preparing. He would just go in like a child and not know anything about the person he was interviewing, and just ask him the most basic questions. And it came across as earnest, but I think he honestly didn't know who the person was, or he'd be asking Peter Fonda. I don't think he knew who he was, but
that is like these podcasts.
1985 TV show to always skip.
Okay, I'm going to bring a little controversy for my skip show. I think it's a beloved show. In fact, it was kind of the first one listed when I looked up the 1985 shows.
We don't shy away from the controversy here at the 70s versus 80s.
Everybody loved this one. It's listed as a groundbreaking, beloved sitcom about 4 older women living together in Miami, starring Bea Arthur, Betty White, Rue McClanahan, and Estelle Getty. That's right, Golden Girls.
Your heart is true, you're a pal and a confidant.
I don't get it. It was 4 old chicks. I liked it better when it came out a decade later, and it was called Sex and the City, because we actually had some chicks that you could look at. These 4 older chicks. I don't know what your opinion is. I know it's a beloved show. I'm pissing everybody off now because everybody loves Golden Girls. I think it was overrated. I don't get it.
Man, be prepared for your landline to ring off the hook with people calling in to complain.
Yeah, my landline, I'll never get. The older 70 women's crowd is going to be mad at me. They're just going to be.
You'd be like, you did a You did an episode where you talked nice about Maude, and then now you're running down the Golden Girls. Well, we can handle. We can play both sides of this coin. Send your faxes to Mike on the mic.
I actually watched Sex on the City, like we talked, later, because that's, I mean, right in the show, it had sex appeal right in the title. But the Golden Girls was just about the only thing golden about them was their advancing age, which I guess that's what it was, a catchphrase about them being in their golden years. I guess I just got that now, and boy, I don't know if I need to watch that. It was just and then the grandma was like the same age as the rest of them, but she was playing the mom, even though she was Estelle Getty was the same age as the rest of them, I think. But wow,
yeah. Now you're gonna have to play some David Bowie Golden Years to get us out of this.
And then I just want to get an honorable mention to North and South, which was a famous miniseries back then. Boy, that was a rough one. That seemed to go on for hours and hours and hours. And oh boy, with Patrick Swayze. Ooh.
Yeah, the magic of miniseries that started with Roots and ended with North and South.
Yeah, North and South. It just never had it. It never had an ending. I think it went on longer than the war itself. It just kept going and going.
Yeah, we needed Sherman to go through the studios and burn the studios down.
All right, on that note.
This is the Hood Rat Recap.
We got a great show for you.
A podcast about the best bar band in the land, man.
The Hold Steady.
Of the band that you love, we love.
We do this because we love it, but we also love that you love it. And if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be here.
I could talk Hold Steady all night.
This is going to be a lot of fun.
The Hood Rat Pack has assembled.
Kevin is whatever. Kevin, how you doing today?
And Hart. That majestic noise can only be the Unified Scene's very own King of Queens, Gasper.
Gasper, why don't you tell them where they can find us on social media?
Best place to find us for our social media or pretty much anything Hood Rat Recap Podcast is our link tree, which is linktr.ee/the Hood Rat Recap.
We're your steady stream of the Unified Scene, of the news and reviews.
I'm Gasper. That's Mike. That's Kevin. And us guys, and all you guys and gals, we are all the Hood Rat Recap.
We do a lot of reminiscing, walking down reminiscing lane here on the 70s versus 80s podcast. And so recently we talked about electronic football and how we entertained ourselves before video games and cable TV and smartphones. And so I just wanted to take a quick minute. A couple of the things that I did is we didn't have the electric football game, but we would take all my sister's stuffed animals and we would line them up in formations. And so this was back in the, early 80s. So you still had like a lot of college teams running wishbones and stuff like that. So you'd line up in the wishbone. And then my sister got a buffalo and we went out to Colorado. So the buffalo would be like a John Riggins type running back. And then she had a big bird stuffed animal that would be a perfect, tall, lanky tight end catching those passes out of the backfield. And so we would do that with stuffed animals. I know on the electronic football game episode, Electric Football, we talked about people setting up these formations or then these war gaming with formations or setting up your army men in formations. So we always stole my sister's stuffed animals and my brother and I would set up formations. And then with baseball, so then we had an unfinished part of our basement that had a concrete floor and you could draw a chalk outline. And we had a ping pong table, like just the boards that would go on top of a pool table and you'd ratchet the net on there and you could play ping pong on your pool table. So we'd have those leaning up when they're not in use and you're using it as a pool table, leaning up against the wall. So it looked like the Green Monster. And so we would draw a baseball infield and someone got birthday like cupcakes that had the little sticks in them. And one of them was a baseball. So we broke the little plastic, stick that would go into the cupcake out. So we had a baseball and we would take turns. My brother and I would roll into each other and then we'd flick them with our fingers, and then they'd fly. And if you bounced it off the green monsters, a home run. And then if it's you determine if it was this a single or was this a ground out or whatever. We played baseball. We did it to the point where it hurt so much, like my middle finger right above the nail when you'd be continuing to hit that hard plastic ball, that it just hurt to play it anymore. And that's what ended that game. So that's kind of the things that we did at the Malika household, at the Spunky Comstock domicile as kids, before you got video games and when it was snowing, snowy outside and you couldn't play baseball or football outside.
That's pretty crazy, Brian, because we had our stuffed animals and we did the exact same thing. We'd run football formations, and my brother Matt talked about my rabbit doorknob. He had no stuffing. He was the star quarterback because he was my favorite stuffed animal, so he'd be the star quarterback. And they had the same thing where I even had backups and backup quarterbacks. So yeah, we'd do the same thing. We was always doing football formations. That's what we did back in those days.
We could put together a team of Doorknob, the barely stuffed rabbit, and then Buffy, the buffalo from Colorado. We'd have the makings of a great offense.
Mike's Moon Boot Memory Minute is brought to you by the Hood Rat Recap Podcast.
I heard, though, there's rumor out there that there's going to be a Mike's Moon Boot Memory Minute coming up. Is that true?
Very good. You said that very well, Brian. I'm glad you said that. So I thought it'd be fun. Moon boots were just such a huge thing, and I got a funny story that happened to me about them when I was a kid. And I thought it would be really funny if we did it like Mike's Miami Vice Minute Memories, where if I tell is everything I know about the moon boots, but I have to get it done before the most famous person that ever wore moon boots was Ace Frehley. He was the spaceman for Kiss. He was never allowed to sing in Kiss until they came out with their solo albums, and we got to hear him sing. And I think Kiss was a pretty smart band for not letting him sing.
Our choir got better when I was singing in it when they unplugged my microphone, so I understand.
In the background here, I'm going to play the song Snowblind, because you always wear your moon boots in the snow. And let's give that a little listen here. Listen to this golden voice here, Brian.
And that's not an AI voice. That's an actual person singing.
Yeah, those golden tones there are Ace Frehley, who only got to sing on his solo album. Let's start that song up and see if I can say everything I know about moon boots. This is Mike's Moon Boot Minute Memories.
You're under the gun. 1 minute.
Here's the golden tones of Ace going right there. And so, Brian, my early memories of moon boots is we'd have them all stacked up out in third grade. We'd have them under our coat rack. We didn't have lockers in third grade. We just had a rack of coats that anybody could go through your pockets, but nobody ever did because we were in third grade. But then moon boots were so famous, they'd be stacked, they'd be in a row. Everybody had moon boots. And the thing about moon boots, they were invented in 1969 by famous Italian designer Giancarlo Zantella. And they got really popular in the 80s. These big vinyl puffy, I don't know, how would you describe them, Brian? They were like wearing giant Q-tips on your foot. They were just so puffy.
Marshmallow type Q-tips, yeah.
American Werewolf in London, those big puffy jackets, and you'd wear these big puffy boots. And the thing about them is they were ambidextrous. I don't know how to say that word. You could wear them on your left foot or right foot. There was no left foot or right foot to them. So they'd be all in the line right there. And one day I had Raisinets, a half hour before school let out. And I was tired of eating these Raisinets. So I decided what would happen if I poured them down the whole row of moon boots. And then when school let out, when the final bell rang out, you should have heard the screams, Brian. Sometimes I still hear those screams at night, Brian. Those screams still come back to me at night. And somehow everybody knew it was me, and I got in trouble for it, but I could still hear those screams at night. And Brian, Ace Frehley, he was the most famous, he was the spaceman. He was the most famous person to wear. He had those big silver moon boots. I'll have a picture of them up front. And the thing about this was, like, in 1978, they came out with the 4 albums of Kiss. They were kind of not getting along, so they decided to each have their own solo album. And the only cool thing about these solo albums is they had their giant picture of their face in front, and then you go in the record store and they'd have them up on the wall. and you could start playing Tic-Tac. It looked like the Brady Bunch because they all had their giant face in the square, so it looked like the beginning of the Brady Bunch. And you could start playing Tic-Tac-Toe. You'd be like, oh, I got 3 Gene Simmons in a row. I block your Peter Criss or whatever. I think you could even play, if you got enough of them, you could play Connect 4, and you could say, oh, I got 4 Pauls in a row, so I got, your sister would beat you. She'd have 4 Paul Stanleys in a row. You go, pretty sneaky, sis.
Object, connect 4 of your checkers in a row while preventing your opponent from doing the same. But look out, your opponent can sneak up on you and win the game.
I win. Where? I can't. Here, diagonally. Pretty sneaky, sis.
Like Connect 4, but and the last story I have about Kiss there is, follow the Hold Steady. Their lead singer Craig Finn used to do Halloween shows with his other band Lifter Polar, and they would dress up as Kiss. So they're like, what Kiss character do you want to be? And they found out they all 4 wanted to be Paul Stanley, so they would all dress up as Paul Stanley, and they'd be the All Pauls. That'd be the name of their group, is the All Pauls. So they had those 4 solo albums, and it kind of caused them to break up because for some reason, even though you can hear this song in the background, the Ace Frehley one was the most popular one. So he got a big head, and he kind of left the group because he thought he was so big. And then the Peter Criss, he wrote the song for Kiss, Beth, which is kind of my favorite Kiss song. But he liked the slow songs, as you can tell by the first rock ballad ever was Beth, and he had that song. But his songs were not popular because they were so slow. So he left the group because the rest of the group was kind of ripping on him, or he just had so many creative differences with the group. And boy, am I talking about Moon Boots a lot. Did I get the Moon Boots in before the song ended there, Brian? There we go. That's all I got. That was a very comprehensible Moon Boot talk. I had a lot of Moon Boot talk there. I hope I didn't kill everybody with my Moon Boot talk.
A lot of information there, including the reason why you were on the elementary school terrorist watch list in Eagan, Minnesota in the mid-'70s.
Boy, did I get in trouble that. Mostly the thing is I could still hear the screams. The screams of horror still come to me sometimes at night, Brian. That's all I got there. I kind of lost steam at the end. I was talking more Kiss than Moon Boots, but there we go.
Moon Boot PTSD.
I heard he sang a good song. I heard he had a style. And so I came to see him to listen for a while. And there he was, this young boy, a stranger to my eyes, strumming my bass with his fingers, singing my life with his words, killing me softly with his song, killing me softly with his song, telling my whole life.
As we often do here on the 70s versus 80s podcast, we've had a couple of legends pass away here in February of 2025, so we wanted to talk about them a little bit. So one was a musical titan, Roberta Flack, kind of one of the leaders of what they called the quiet storm, so you have like your R&B and stuff like that, but she had these songs that were more like ballads, soulful ballads, as opposed to like the upbeat rhythm and blues or powerful rhythm and blues of like, say, an Aretha Franklin or Tina Turner.
Roberta Flack, she was classically trained in classical music at the age of 14 or 15. So her songs, they were just, we played Killing You Softly right there. You can hear just the precision. I mean, it's just, I think that's a perfect resume for her. Her voice is just, could not sing it any better. Different than Aretha, who will, go and kind of riff and jazz it up, which is, what makes her who she is, that we love about her. This is just a very classic, just perfectly laid down tracks. She laid down the song, Every Time I See Your Face. She had that come out in 1969, actually. It got no traction. And then she got a phone call on her landline where her mom's like, someone called Clint Eastwood wants to speak to you. And she's like, no way, that's not really Clint Eastwood. And she picked it up. Clint Eastwood is called Play Misty for Me. Can I use your song? The movie came out in 1971, and by 1973, it was a big hit.
The first time ever I saw your face.
Yeah, that song, The First Time Ever I Saw Your Face, was written in 1957. Someone wrote it for someone else. Never really hit on. And then, like you said, when it was used, it just became the number one. It was like the number one Hot 100 single for 1972 by Billboard magazine. She followed it up with Killing Me Softly with this song in 1973, but that was written in 1971, but it wasn't written specifically for her, as her version of it went to number one. And then in 1974, so 3 years in a row, she had a song called Feel Like Making Love. It's not the Bad Company song. It also hit number 1. So when I was reading about this, the article said this was the first female artist since 1940 to have 3 number 1 hit songs in a row. It's like Aretha didn't do it. Diana Ross didn't do it.
Wow.
Anything like that. So like, oh.
I feel like making dreams come true.
They didn't say who it was. And that pissed me off. It's like, say it. Like when in college football, Georgia's had 2 college national championships in a row, and whenever they say, well, they're going to try to go for 3 in a row, first time since 1934 to 1936, us Minnesotans automatically knew, at least if you're a college football fan, that was the Golden Gophers' run of 3 national championships in a row. But they always said it was the Gophers. But this person who wrote this was like, nope, I'm not going to tell you who it was. So I had to go and look, and I narrowed it down to potentially 3 people. And the funny thing is they all fronted, like did vocals for these big bands like Artie Shaw or Benny Goodman. And it was either Ella Fitzgerald, Billie Holiday, or a young lady called Helen Forrest, who I think may be the one. She had a number 1 hit with Artie Shaw in 38 and with Benny Goodman in 1939 and 1940. But I'm not 100% certain. So I can't say it for sure because I want to be accurate with my sources. I'm not like that writer of the article that said, first female to have 3 hit songs in a row, years with hit songs in a row since 1940. But I'm not going to tell you because I'm a loser writer. Sorry, Roberta Flack. You had some fantastic music, pulled off something that hadn't happened since 1940. We don't know who pulled it off before you, but we know you did it in 72, 73, 74. Thank you for blessing us with your talent.
I'll give her credit. You know, everybody kind of said she was so by the book, but then in the 80s, she did come out with a couple, shall we say, yacht rockish type, fun, poppy 1980s songs too.
As they all did. So the Fugees with Lauryn Hill did a cover of Killing Me Softly the song, and they ended up doing a duet, Lauryn Hill and Roberta Flack, and supposedly it's a really good cover, or a really good version of the song.
It's amazing.
Take us to the next titan of entertainment that has passed in late February of 2025.
So at the time of this recording, we're not quite sure of the cause of his death, but Gene Hackman was found dead in his New Mexico home.
Well, Gene Hackman was huge in the 70s and 80s. I think we've only talked about 2 of the movies he was in. He had a kind of a small bit, but a funny bit in Young Frankenstein. But he was in the Poseidon Adventure. When we were talking about the best movies, I think it was of 74 and 84, Poseidon Adventure was one of those. But you look at what he did in the 70s and 80s. The French Connection in 71, he won Best Actor. And then The Scarecrow, The Conversation, A Bridge Too Far. I've watched that movie, loved it, read the book. Then he was Lex Luthor in the first 3 Supermans. I was in All Night Long with Barbra Streisand. In Reds with Warren Beatty. Mississippi Burning, a fantastic film in 1988. And then maybe Mike and I are sports fans, probably his best turn, Coach Dale in Hoosiers in 1986. And then the studio really wanted Jack Nicholson, but he was doing something else at the time. And then they thought about trying to get Burt Reynolds to do it. I don't know if that would be the right person. And then I think they went to maybe John Voight. And when they all fell through, then they went to Gene Hackman. And I think Gene Hackman, those other 3 would have probably done the role okay, but they wouldn't have given it the gravitas that Gene Hackman did. That's just a fantastic underdog story.
Yeah.
And he does such a great job in it. And he was 95. He was born in 1930. He left home at 16 and lied to get into the Marines, did a 5-year stint in the Marines. He was quite the character. And sad thing when you get older and trying to live at like a hermit life is you can have what happened is you pass away. And as of right now, like Mike said, we don't know what it was, but they may have been dead for over a week before they were found. So it's just a tragic situation.
Yeah.
And left such a body of work in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, even his Lex Luthor roles, you know, you can kind of chuckle at him, but he was so good. You just wanted to punch him in the face the whole time he was on screen. He was just so good at it.
You know, that's the mark of a true actor. You're going to be lovable in one role and be a total villain that everyone hates.
Lex Luthor. Possibly you've heard the name, the greatest criminal mind on earth.
Gene Hackman was born in San Bernardino, California, but he grew up in Dansville, Illinois. he was born in 1930, as you mentioned. There's another actor that was born in 1933 in London, so they don't sound like they have much in common, but I get these two confused all the time, and that's Michael Caine. So I thought I'd give you a little speed round here, Brian, of the, is it Gene Hackman or is it Michael Caine game? What, you want to try it?
Ah, yes. I love the Michael Caine game. Michael Caine, Gene Hackman, bring it on.
The Is It Gene Hackman or Is It Michael Caine game is brought to you by the Or Is It podcast. Even though they are serious movie critics, I bet they still have a difficult time telling these two apart.
What movies are we talking about? Or is it the long-lost series ending to The Office?
Or is it why your exes should stay exes?
Find out on the Or Is It movie podcast. Or is it the Lego movie version for Crayola?
Or is it how not to attract beautiful deaf women?
We're on Spotify, Apple iTunes, and everywhere you get your favorite podcasts.
Or is it Shared Groundhog Day?
Or is it Titty Bouncy, the movie?
I'm going to read you some clues here, and you just got to yell out. I'll give you 1 point if you get the right actor, and then I'll give you 3 points if you can name the movie. The movies are pretty tough, though, but okay, so.
Number 1.
A retired master thief is forced back into action when his mentor is killed. He teams up with a younger protege to steal a priceless gold shipment. Do you know who that is?
I'm going to say that is Michael Caine.
Correctamundo.
Yes. Do you know what movie it is at all?
Treasure of the Sierra Madre.
No, it's the Italian Job, the 1969 one.
The Italian. Oh, they that was remade recently.
Remade recently, yes.
I didn't watch it.
Number 2.
A detective in New York City becomes obsessed with catching a French drug smuggler, leading to one of the most famous car chase scenes in movie history.
All right, so with car chase scenes and the fact that I just talked about it earlier for his Academy Award, I'm going to say that's Gene Hackman in The French Connection.
Correctamundo.
But that's because I did a tiny little bit of research.
Well, that was pretty easy. When you get the car chase scene in French, that one's pretty easy. I got one more here for you.
Number 3.
Two aging illusionists reunite after years apart for one final performance, but their long-standing rivalry might get in the way. Do you know what that is?
I'm going to say Michael Caine and Dirty Rotten Scoundrels.
Correctamundo.
It was a trick question. You got half of it right. It was Michael. You could answer either Michael Caine in The Prestige of 2006, but it's a trick question because it also perfectly describes Hackman starred in The Quick and the Dead, another revenge-filled magician movie. So the movies had the same plot. So that's what gets them confused. All right, let's move on to the speed round here.
Speed round.
Yell out Hackman or Caine. So this one's easy. Superman's greatest enemy, Lex Luthor. We already said that one.
Hackman.
Correctamundo.
We're going to stay in the DC universe. Batman's trusted butler, Alfred.
Alfred is Caine.
Correctamundo.
Led a team of World War II POWs in a soccer game against the Nazis. I love this movie.
Hackman.
No, it's Michael Caine in Victory. That was the one where Sylvester Stallone played the soccer goal, even he didn't know the rules or anything. So.
Oh, sure.
Finally, the last speed round here took down a corrupt sheriff in Clint Eastwood's Western.
Hackman.
Correctamundo.
Yes, Hackman in 1992's Unforgiven.
Yes.
So that's it. That's it for our first ever Is It Gene Hackman or Is It Michael Caine game.
Yeah, well, they've had such long careers, we will be able to do that game multiple times. As a connoisseur of car chases, we talked about the Blues Brothers, but it's a different type of car chase. French Connection or Bullet? Which one's the better car chase?
I think I like Bullet a little better. It's just really raw and real. It's like almost like you're watching a documentary type almost, yeah.
Yeah. I love it until they crash the Charger, and then it's like, oh.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's looking back at Roberta Flack and Gene Hackman. If you haven't seen some of these movies, definitely check them out. Go listen to those 3 Quiet Storm songs of the classically trained Roberta Flack singing these wonderful ballads. We'll be back with you the next time someone passes. We'll do a tribute to them the only way the 70s and 80s know how.
Me and the boys are playing, and we just can't find.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of the 70s versus the 80s. Keep it classy, my fellow babies. This is Wolfman Mike reminding you to wash your hands after you wipe. As always, I'd like to thank Brian Malika for co-producing this episode. Brian Malika, of course, was produced by eating all of his fast food out of styrofoam clamshells. Everything except for the French fries. Why were the French fries the only food that didn't come in styrofoam? That's food for thought, my fellow babies. And finally, I'd like to apologize to Beth Erickson. Beth, as you can remember, was one of our Seinfeld experts along with Heather back on the Seinfeld episode. Well, the thing is, Beth is a huge Kiss fan, and, well, I feel like I just said too many negative things about Kiss on this episode. So, Beth, I'm sorry, but, oh, Beth, what can I do? Beth, what can I do?
Oh, Beth, what can I do? Beth, what can I do?
Would you say they were entering into yacht rock territory of the 80s theme songs? Send your faxes to Mike on the mic.
The screams of horror still come to me sometimes at night, Brian.
Beth, I know you're lonely, and I hope you'll be alright. 'Cause me